All right, y'all, I have knit as deep as I would like the first stripe in my fingering weight version to be. It is 4 inches. I have already cut off a tail from my oatmeal color that's approximately 6 inches, and I'm ready to now switch colors to this navy blue planetarium color. And I wanted to show you how I'm changing my colors and also how I handle the side seam when I'm changing the colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to hold on to my tail like I normally would. That 6 inches is really helpful. Remember, this is my beginning of the round. I use this excess cord, excuse my language and my speech, to keep track of my beginning of the round. The traveling loop is just my preferred way, but you may use whatever you want. So I am still going to insert into that first stitch as if to knit, still holding the same yarn. And I'm still going to go ahead and wrap it the way I normally would, but I'm not going to pull it through yet because I want to connect my blue yarn with it. And so I am going to lay that over top. And I'm just placing both of the tails between my index finger and my middle finger just to hold them in place. And I'm now going to get the blue ready to hold. And I'm going to pull both of the colors through. When I do my second round, I will knit both of these stitches together as one. And then I'm off to the races here. So while I work my way around to the first side seam, let's talk a little bit about color choice and striping. Now, just because I have chosen to do wide stripes in the pattern doesn't mean that you have to do wide stripes either, right? You have total artistic freedom as far as what you would like to do as far as striping goes. You can make really wide stripes like I did. You could make thin stripes. All your stripes could be the same width. They could be different widths. They could be 2 colors. They could be all the colors. You could use a solid and a variegated, a solid and a speckle. You could use a speckle or a variegated. You need to choose, or I would recommend that you choose what makes you excited to knit and makes you excited to make. I apologize if I went off camera there a little bit. I didn't mean to. And I'm sorry for that plastic rubbing sound on the table. I would also say choose the fiber that you would be most excited to work with. So, you know, my first Aran Weight version of this, oh, I'm gonna have to get a tablecloth. That sounds bothering me too. My first Aran Weight version of this was knit in 100% wool. And that was really great because wool is toothy, right? So if something, and it was non-superwash, so if I were to drop a stitch like I just did, there wasn't like immediate dread that, oh my God, I have to fix that and hurry up and catch it. This fingering weight version is cotton, which can be a little slippery, but really not that bad. And also cotton can tend to split a little easier. So that's something that I've had to kind of pay attention to. If I'm knitting while watching TV or trying to read a book while I'm knitting, then I every once in a while will look down and assess how I'm doing. Do my stitches look okay? Am I going to have to go back and fix anything? Something like that. So choose the colors that you want to use and choose the fiber that you want to use. I feel like this pattern's pretty forgiving. It's kind of like for me, it feels kind of like being in art class where the teacher says, this is the project that we're working on. This is the general structure, but you need to make it your own and play with color. I mean, you could even, if you didn't want to do stripes, and like I said, you could just do it all in solids, or you could do a fade, anything like that. So I'm coming up to this first side seam now. Thanks for hanging out with me. So, slipping my stitch, and I'm going to slow down now. Now, normally when we get to the side panel, we're going to purl the first two, except that if I purl these first two stitches, let me just show you what I end up with. I end up with this oatmeal bump, purl bump, and I don't want that personally. Now, it might not bother you. It might not bother you in the least, but for me, I just would like a smoother transition between colors. So what I have done, let me spread out my side panel here. You see my twisted stitches, and then that center stitch on this last row, it was a purl bump, which works out great because I can keep in line with my center pattern of purl, knit, purl. So I can go ahead and knit, and that'll be a clean color transition. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to knit, twist, knit through the back loop, knit through the back loop, knit, and then I'm ready to go again. I'm only going to alter those purls on the center seams, only when I change color for the first row. On row 2 of my new color, I'm just going to go right back to the purls as I had them originally. But if you notice, now it's just a very clean and neat line. And so I can just kind of keep going. And you know what? I'm going to do this round with you just so we can hang out for a second, because I want to show you how I resolve that changing of the new color at the beginning of the round. Now, you might already have you might already have a way that you like to do it. I'm just showing you how I did it, just in case you wanted another option. So the tip on the side seam about whenever you're changing colors, for purls instead of purling, knit it. I heard about that from the Knitting Posse. One of the ladies was making I don't know what they're called, for golf clubs, you know, the little toppers. She was knitting it for her husband, and she wanted stripes, and it was ribbed, and she didn't like the purl bump showing, and so she had shared about how when she changed colors, she would knit the pearls. And then the way that I join new yarn, like I did with the blue, where I pull it through, I learned that from Leslie Friend on her podcast. So I want to credit those two ladies because that's where I had picked up those tips, and they're two tips that I have used many times. So you might already be done with this round by the time I get to the second side seam if you used a heavier weight or a thicker weight of yarn. So I appreciate you bearing with me, or maybe you were just really smart and fast forward through all of this. but sometimes I think it might be nice just to have a little chat while we knit. And I will do this same method every time I change stripes. I do think this would also be fun to try like scraps from your stash. If you make a lot of hats or make a lot of socks, so you have lots of leftovers, that could be fun. You could have a scrappy version. That'd be super art class. Okay, so I'm to my second side seam, and remember, I'm going to, I hope I'm focused, knit, oops, knit, twist your stitch. So knit through the back loop, knit, twist, knit, knit. Okay, so I do want to repeat again that I made sure that I was ready to start my new color on row 1 of the side seam repeat. Remember, row 1 always has a knit stitch in the middle so that I could have a clean line. Okay, so I planned this ahead. This is thought out. If I got to 4 inches on what should have been a knit, I don't want 2 knits in a row on the side seam in the middle stitch. I want to keep that ladder look. So that was well thought out as far as what I wanted. So I've reached the end of my row, and since I'm doing a traveling loop, what I'm going to do is I hold on to one edge and actually hold on to the fabric, not the cord, and I just pull it, pull, 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 until I now have my stitches arranged. Back on my left needle, and now my extra cord and right needle are empty, and I'm ready to do row 2. Now the good thing is that this ends up on the side, so I'm not really worried about a jogless stripe necessarily. I mean, I could go ahead and do that, but I'm not going to. Since it's on the side, you don't really notice it that much. Now when I do the sleeves, that'll be different. I'll show you how I do that when I get to the sleeve. So here we have our original oatmeal color, or I think it's called parchment. Sorry, oatmeal was my other sweater. So we have parchment and we have planetarium sitting both together. So I'm going to knit those two together and then continue on my way. And after a couple of stitches, I might grab the tails and just kind of gently comb my fingers. Like I take my thumbnail against my finger to create soft tension, just to kind of tighten it down. And I want to make sure that that stitch is on my needle so that it doesn't get so tight that I won't be able to knit it again. And then you have a choice with your tail, right? Like you could either leave this as it is, or you can weave it as you go. I am thinking on my other sweater with the wool, I did Stephen West's Weave and Steven and wove the ends in as I went. But since this is cotton doesn't necessarily stick to itself, I'm gonna leave these out. And eventually what I will do, and this is my own personal preference, is I am going to tie a knot and then weave in the ends just to secure it. I would feel more comfortable doing that. But depending on what you're knitting with as far as fiber content is going to sway what you decide to do. So now what I would do is I would continue on with my color, and I'm going to go ahead and get to the side seam again. Like I said, if you want to, you can fast forward just the plain knitting, or you can knit with me. We can hang out together. Like I said, I apologize for that tapping sound. I'll have to put a tablecloth down. So then we don't have to listen to the tapping of the cord. Okay. You could also, going back to the discussion of colors and striping, you know, I have a fairly stark contrast here as far as color work goes. And, you know, a lot of times I'm quite partial to color work that's more subtle. So maybe putting like a royal blue with a navy blue, kind of a monochrome color. Or if I did this parchment color that I have, do this parchment color with maybe a cream. I don't think I would do it in white, but that's just because I think ivories and creams look better on my skin tone, but I think that would look cool. I also think, so one of my favorite color combos is like a hot red, like a hot tomato red with a hot pink. And that would be really subtle and look really neat. So the reason I'm hanging on here and staying on to show you this side seam is I want to show you that when I get back over to this side seam, I'm going to work it just as I did before. You just go back to the way it was. So, almost there. We're getting close. I'm so close. I can feel the stitch markers. Look, almost there. Oh, and even, I just realized, like, even like this planetarium color with a pink, navy and pink, that could be cute. I think the best thing is for you to choose what you really enjoy and are excited to knit. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, now, most of the time what I do is I go and I look on my Pinterest board for like the outfits that I really like and would want to wear, and I use that as my guide to pick out colors. Oops, sorry, came out of frame. Okay, we're getting there. Thanks for hanging with me. Okay, so now what I'm back to my side panel. I'm going to knit, twist, or those purl, knit through the back loop, purl, knit through the back loop, and purl, purl, slip my marker, and continue knitting. Now I'm going to knit a few stitches past so then I can spread it out on my needle so you can see the side seam that I have going here. So I'm just going to spread this out so then you can whoa, sorry, knocked the camera. So now you can clearly see I have a very clean line from my stripe, and my center, no, that's not my center stitch, right here, my center stitch pattern was continued. It was not interrupted. It still goes from knit, purl, and I'll keep going. And that's it. So now I just need to keep going and get these stripes done. And the next video tutorial will probably be when we're ready to split for sleeves, I believe. So there you go.